Hey, Ken Johnson here with Great Wave Communications, and we're continuing our series of interviewing different folks with a connection to Conneaut or Ashtabula County who've gone on and done amazing things and really become leaders in their field, kind of inspire the rest of us to think big, and especially for our young people that are still in school. And the privilege a couple years ago of meeting Mr. Ray Fogg, and today we're up in Cleveland and have the honor to meet with Mr. Fogg and get a chance to get a feel for his connection to Northeast Ohio and specifically the Conneaut area. I'm going to shift gears again back to your Cleveland days. Whether it's at the university or your rescue work, starting your own company, you strike me as a guy that was a leader. And if I remember correctly, you had to stand up for yourself, especially with this last name, that some people would make fun of it with Frog or other things.
Yeah, well, I had that a lot of times, that people wanted to change Fogg to Frog, and I had to correct them. But I remember specifically as a very young boy getting into an argument with a man who was doing it on purpose. And he ended up giving me a big piece of money, a nickel, because I stood up for the name Fogg. But when I started this business, it started out as just Fogg Construction. And then I got a call from somebody who wanted me to come in and fog their building. So I realized that I had to do more than that. So I put my first name on it, Ray Fogg, and then added the word building methods. So that was happened in many times, broadening my name so they could understand what the heck I was talking about.
Ray, you're now in your 80s. And most people in business that have had the kind of success you have had would have been retired 20 years ago. But yet we're here today at your corporate headquarters. You're in the trench still doing the job. What's that all about?
Well, the answer to that is, what would I do if I didn't do that? And because I did play golf, but I never played golf well or wanted to devote that much time to it. So I want to play golf. Yes, I did do fishermen, but I don't like to do that. So if I don't want to fish and I don't want to play golf, what am I going to do every day if I so-called retire?
Right.
So much better to work every day as long as I'm able to, and fortunately, I have the health that allows me to do it. And I think that going to one of the things you'd see on a bulletin board in the other room from my father that says, when your employees are your friends and your customers are your friends, business is fun. And therefore, I keep this because it's fun.
Well, good. One of the reasons we talked to you and asked you to do this interview is to show young people in Ashtabula County and the Conneaut area that it doesn't matter that you grew up in Conneaut. The world is still out there if you chase it. If you had a room full of high school seniors and juniors that were getting ready to graduate who maybe think, hey, I can't rise above what my parents did or ever get out of this town or, improve their station, what would you have to say to them?
Well, I'm going to grab a piece of a lecture that I do at Ohio University.
Sure.
And in that case, it's dealing with university students, but this applies that I think one of the most important things for young people to do is to write a plan. What are you going to do? I wrote my first plan when I was 14.
Really?
What I was going to do. The only problem was I got it done too quick and had to write a new one. But nevertheless, the important thing is to write a plan. What it is that you're going to do. One of the things I say in the lecture, I say, how would you like it if I told you to drive me to Cincinnati? And you went out and you got in my car and you said, I forgot to learn how to drive. And then you say, by the way, where's Cincinnati? And so if you're going to accomplish what you want to and think, there are certain things you've got to do. You've got to know how to drive if you're going to drive that car. And so your plan has to include accomplishing the things that you have to accomplish so that you therefore can accomplish the things that are part of your plan. very important that you build a plan of what you're going to do and work at it. Now, some of the kids tell me, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I think that the important thing to tell them, which I do, is do the opposite. Tell me what you don't want to do.
Yeah.
And give me a long list of, and I'll ask you questions about that. And you give me a long list. And out of the long list of what you don't want to do, will all of a sudden come the list of what you want to do. And very important that you make a plan. And not that the plan can't change, but the plan might also, when you get an opportunity to do something that doesn't fit the plan, you either are going to change your plan or say, no, it doesn't fit the plan. And that happened to me a number of times.
Sure.
That something came, an opportunity came to stay and do something. And then because it didn't fit my plan, I didn't do it.
Sure. What would you say to the young person? I mean, because the thing that strikes me about your listening about your family is, that everybody had an expectation of accomplishing something. Mm-hmm. Whether it was your mom writing plays, I think one of your sisters is a good artist.
Yeah.
But it seems like you were industrious people who wanted to do something. So what would you say to a kid who says, well, I have no opportunity. I'm going to go work at the local fast food joint, and that's all I can do?
Yeah. Well, I would say you make your own opportunities. And if yes, you don't have the money to start. But I was fortunate that I made, in that paper route business, I was making, imagine that the sixth grader making $50 a week.
In the 1930s.
When minimum wage was 85 cents an hour. So,
yeah, wow.
Families were being raised on $30, $35 an hour. So you make your own opportunities, but you make them out of a plan.
Right.
And if you don't have the plan, it'll be very tough to create and establish and get opportunities. But there are lots of opportunities if you move on and search for them and want to accomplish something. Yes, you have to search out the person that's going to support you, the person that's going to help you, and et cetera. But there are the opportunities to move on.
And I feel strongly, Ray, that in my own experience is, I started by setting very small goals and then realizing the satisfaction that small goal was, and then pick the next one. And I feel like success begets success, and each step you can get a larger success. Do you agree or disagree with that?
But to move on, you've got to establish the abilities to move on.
Yes.
And if you don't realize that I'm not going to be able to move on if I haven't done the background stuff,
right,
to do that, to allow me to move on. And yes, it's convenient for me that I had such a supportive family.
Sure.
That was doing a lot of things. Again, one of the great things from my mother is, of course, that she gave up a tremendous career in New York to bring the family together.
Sure.
So we have been a family and supportive of each other for many years.
Back to your siblings, you mentioned that they all graduated from college. Let's give them a little time. What kind of things did they go on to do?
Well, Sister Alice, who joined the Coast Guard during the war years, then came out and did further work in Cleveland in the Coast Guard in the business side of that. But she became a absolutely wonderful music writer. Really? And wrote a musical, which I love to hear, and I won't get into too much of the detail of the musical, but it was performed locally here and then just recently out in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I think it's going to be performed in Akron maybe in another year. I'm working with them on that. Sister Helen, besides other things, is a great artist and still does lots of art and has art shows,
Really?
etc. Over the thing. But the other thing that she did, she ran here in Cleveland the organization that did scholarships. It's called Cleveland Scholarship.
Okay.
She ran Cleveland Scholarship, which gave tremendous opportunities to so many people to go on in their careers. But she ran Cleveland Scholarship. Brother Frank was involved in the early stages of the electronics field and did many things in that field at the very, very early stages of the explosion of the things that happened in electronics. When he was in the Navy during the war, as a very young man, he had the job of flyer control in a destroyer. So he was controlling all the gun
Really?
firing from his destroyer. And again, he's 18, 19 years old.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but he got drafted his senior year of high school.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? And
Well, I
did
thought
he finish
it was
his
absolutely
education?
great that they were drafting young men. Women didn't get drafted back then, but they drafted young men when they turned 18. It didn't matter that you had not finished high school, etc. So my brother's birthday was in April, so he was taken right out of high school into the service when he turned 18. But back then, and I think it's very important to look that they're a great principal, Holston. He set up a method where the young people would send to him back and forth a few letters, and he would consider that a study, and therefore was able to grant them their graduate high school degree. And I remember specifically, how proud my mother was that he invited her to come to the graduation ceremony and invited her especially to come up out of the office, out of the audience and accept my brother's graduation.
That's
I thought that was a
outstanding.
great time.
That makes me think. Frank was kind of ahead of the curve when it came to predicting the beginning of World War II.
Yeah.
He kind of became the newsman, didn't
Well, we were in Lakewood at the time, and he was delivering I think it's called the Cleveland News at that time, the paper, and they all of a sudden had an extra, and they had called him up sometime early in the morning, very early in the morning, and told him that he had to deliver their extra paper. And so this was when Germany had invaded Poland. And so he was going down the street hollering, "Extra, extra, World War II starts." And I remember specifically my sister sticking her head out and say, "Stop that, you'll frighten everybody." And this was long before it was called
Right.
World War II.
Yeah. Because of your age, it's always interesting for me. You'd have been about 11 years old, I guess, when Pearl Harbor happened.
Yeah.
What do you remember about that day?
Well, I remember laying on the floor with listening to a radio at that time, and hearing the news all of a sudden break in and tell about the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And of course, I knew nothing about what Japan was at that age. And so, again, I think that would have, that's 41, so I'm 11 years old, so I knew nothing about history. So I can remember saying to my sister, "Well, whatever that small country is, we'll take care of them next week." So I didn't get the picture of how big the World War was going to be.
Sure.
Nor did he.
Sure. Ray, if I had to, sit you down and say, okay, you get to tell one story about your time in Conneaut. What maybe is your fondest memory of being in Conneaut?
Well, you know, the friendships that have been there over the years. I mean, I still have, as you mentioned, Dwayne was a very close friend. I still have 4 or 5 classmates that live in Conneaut that I communicate with probably at least once a month still. So the friendships that I have that established and how great they were to be there. So those the experience that I think that I have, and a lot of little stories that are good. But the friendships that I have had from Conneaut has made it great. I was just thinking as I chatted with you, when I was building this building that I built in Conneaut, the industrial building, a fire engine came by, and a guy hollered out of the fire engine at my superintendent, "I know that Ray Fogg." And I drove by, and I realized it was a brother of one of my classmates.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's great. Well, Ray, we certainly appreciate the time and getting to know you a little bit and be able to bring your story back to Conneaut. So thanks so much, and we wish you all the best success.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed being here and enjoyed chatting with you.